welcome to the official Plugged In Vodcast. I am Adam Holz, and today we've got an opportunity to talk with Jessie Minassian, who is a friend of Focus on the Family, author, blogger, and all-around communicator. So, Jessie, great to have you on today. And your area of specialization really has to do with teen girls and the issues that they face today. And obviously at Plugged In, we spend a lot of time talking about technology and also entertainment and media and how those things affect kids today. So that's going to be what we're going to focus on today.
Let's do it.
So, Jessie, you have done a lot of thinking about how to help adolescents in junior high and high school and even college age grow into godly women. What are some of the messages they see and hear in the media today that you think are most problematic and damaging?
That's a great question, Adam. Well, I feel like there's three core questions that every woman needs to answer. And if she can answer those when she's in her tween and teen years, that's even better because we don't grow out of them. And the first one is, am I beautiful? The second one is, am I lovable? Is there a guy who would find me worthy of pursuing? And then, is there a God who would forgive me despite everything I've done? Would he love me?
Wow,
and so
those
I think
are great questions.
It's taken me a long time to figure those out in my own life. So I feel like the most damaging media messages that we're given are those that address those three specific questions.
Okay.
So one
And
would
probably
be,
in wrong ways, I'm assuming.
in wrong ways, exactly. So instead of affirming a young woman's beauty, they're the messages that say you're not enough, or that portray beauty in a very sexualized way. I feel like that's one of the most damaging. And along those same lines, answering that question, am I lovable? Those messages that portray that you're only lovable if you are sexual or if you do present yourself in a certain way are particularly damaging. So I would say those are the ones that are most on my radar for young women and trying to help them sift through the lies that the media is sending them.
Is there anything specific that you've seen recently where those ideas come up? I mean, a magazine cover, a TV show, a movie, anything like that?
And all of them.
Pop or D, all of the above. I guess we can move on to the next question.
Yeah, I would say most of the media that I consume personally or that I'm viewing for reference for the ministry that I do, there's usually some aspect of it. It's become so normalized that every music video, even the ones that are clean lyrically, seem to have some sort of outfit or just the way that they're singing. I was just recently watching what would be a very tame movie, and yet, the Disney pop star, the way she was singing, I'm like, how would I explain to, a young girl, why is she moving her hips the way she's moving her? Why is she singing the way that she's singing to no one in particular?
So, it seems like the answer is almost everything. Like, if somebody has that level of fame and influence, that's just expected. That's the status quo.
There's definitely exceptions, which we're always grateful for, and I'm grateful that Plugged In tries to point those out as well, but I would say it's not the general rule.
Okay. Well, let's talk about social media specifically for a moment. What would you say to parents of a girl who's maybe still in middle school, who's pressuring them to get her own social media accounts? Is this a good
Middle
idea?
School.
Yeah. Well, my fifth grader last night was pushing me for a phone, and she was saying, all of my friends have a phone and I don't. And I said, I feel so sorry for you, but I'm afraid you're going to need a better argument than that. But anyway, I digress.
Yes, in our house, it's, let me tell you about when you're going to get a phone when you can pay for it.
Okay. I may use that too.
There's no free rides in the Minassian household. I think there are probably exceptions to this, but at least with the young women that I've come across and work with and get questions from on my website, it is very rare to find a tween or young teen who is capable of filtering social media through a mature enough lens to use it in an appropriate way and not have it affect her self-esteem and her view of community and relationships. And really, it's just not necessary. I remember so clearly when I had my first daughter.
I'm going to have you over.
Yeah, I'll come on over. I'll give a plug to your kids. I remember being at this barbecue with my 1-year-old daughter. She was our first. And everyone was having ice cream out. They were, it was a big deal. And someone came over with an ice cream to give to my daughter. And there was another woman standing there, and she came over and she just kind of pushed it aside for a second. She said, you know what? Once you give that to her, there's no going back. And I thought,
it's kind of before ice cream and after ice cream.
Right. Yeah, once she tastes that delicious creaminess, she's going to be asking for it for the rest of her life, right?
Yeah.
And I always remembered that both in food and in the sugar that we gave our kids, but also just in media in general. Like once you cross certain thresholds, it's very hard as a parent to have an argument to move that boundary backwards.
Yeah, it is.
And so we try to be very intentional about crossing those thresholds. And I think social media is a very substantial one, especially for teens.
What would you say are some of the specific ways that social media can damage a young woman? I mean, by young woman, I mean a middle schooler, somebody maybe just in high school.
Yeah. Well, going back to those questions, I think they really twist our view of our own beauty.
Okay.
They twist our idea of what real love is. I speak to a lot of teen girls, and I'll ask the question, how many of you have been asked for nudes? And almost every hand will go up. And so once you allow that device in your hands, even though they might not be searching out content or searching out those things, somehow they have a way of finding them, even just in social circles. And so that can be really damaging. And then the really twisted thing.
I think some of us might be really shocked at that.
Absolutely.
I mean, we still might think that's aberrant, that's the exception, and it sounds like what you're saying is
it is
that's
much
the rule.
more the norm than you would expect. And then the girls who aren't asked for them will tell me, I know it's really twisted, but I actually am jealous that I'm not getting asked, because what does that say about me if they're all getting asked
Nobody
and I'm not?
is
I must not
desirable.
be beautiful enough. Yeah, exactly. So those are just a few of the messages I think that are being sent. Obviously, there's been a lot of research, a lot of articles written on just the social aspect of feeling alone in the middle of all these likes and followers. But it's serious stuff. I think as parents, we need to be mindful of it. Regardless of what rules or boundaries we set in place or don't set in place, we just need to be intentional.
Well, and I think when we're at that age, it's just such a ripe season for comparison anyway. What
absolutely.
We look like, taller, shorter, bigger, smaller, more developed, less developed, more acne, less acne. I mean, you just go down the list, and it feels like social media just takes that and blows it out to epic proportions.
Yeah, puts it under a magnifying glass. Just everything is so much more in your face and exaggerated. And yet at that stage of life, they're seeing it as reality, even though we might know that this is an exaggerated view of life.
Yeah.
And that's hard for them to decipher.
Well, and I mean, the research shows even adults don't deal with this very well. Like,
I didn't want to go there, but it's true.
I think if we struggle with it as adults, it's fair to say,
that's exactly right.
How much more is a developing young person going to wrestle with this stuff? Well, I know it can feel overwhelming as a parent at times when we look at all this stuff that's swirling out there, both in terms of content and the technology that delivers it. The smartphones, the tablets, and just trying to stay on top of all of that. What are some concrete ways that we can work on building relationships with our daughters during this stage? And I ask that really personally because I've got two of them that are right there.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think it actually goes back to what we were just talking about, and it's our relationship with our own media and our own technology. We got to put our phones down.
You had to go there.
We got to put our phones down. We've got to put our computers away. We've got to model what it looks like to prioritize relationship over devices and over media. And so if we want to connect with our daughters or our sons, we've got to put it away and show them how to live life, right? Go take a bike ride. Go take them on a date. Go, just be together.
Anything.
Do something. Do something that does not involve a screen, and show them how good it is to just be in relationship. It's not going to be perfect. If you've got tweens or teens, it's sometimes more work as a parent, more drama, more relational stress, but those are the moments where we're building that relationship with them.
Well, and I know as a working dad, and my wife works, and we both have demanding jobs, sometimes at the end of the day, I just want a little me time. I just want to unplug, except unplugging often means plugging in. And I think that part of the sacrifice that we need to make as parents is to say, that's not what's best for my kids right now.
And it's also not best for us. For those, we feel like
that's
just
true.
Vegging in front of a screen sometimes is going to be the most relief, when in actuality, if we actually do something creative or constructive, it's actually more filling. That's what I'm learning in my life now, when it just seems so much easier to veg and watch a show instead to actually, take a walk, get some exercise, or create something as a family or individually.
Okay. Jesse, I know you have 2 daughters, and
I do.
every family situation is different. And
Yeah.
even between my kids, they have different sensitivities. So there's no one size fits all solution. I want to be really clear about that. But I would love to hear you just talk for a moment about what some of the principles you are for your family and how you set boundaries with regard to technology and entertainment.
Yeah. I think because I've been working with teen and college age girls for a long time, I've seen kind of some of the damage that it can do when there's just an open-ended, you can watch what you want to watch. I think particularly, I'm keenly aware of those questions we talked about earlier and how my daughters are going to perceive themselves based on what they watch. So there's different categories of entertainment. In our family, we've got books, we've got, music, and we've got, the movies. And I have different criteria for all three because I think that there's obviously our imaginations as we're reading a book, we're going to imagine things differently than if we're watching a movie and it's just kind of all laid out there.
In some ways it might be better, in some ways it might be worse.
It might be,
right?
Yeah, it might be, yeah.
But it's different.
It is different. So we kind of evaluate all of them different. I don't want my kids to be sheltered, but I also am very vigilant about protecting their hearts, right?
Okay,
Like,
yeah.
we've got a water source near our house and the water goes literally to our pipes into our community. And we have to protect the source of that water because we know whatever goes into it is coming downstream into our homes eventually. And so I would rather err on the side of being too careful what my kids are exposed to at younger ages than too lenient. I remember one daughter, she was a teenager at the time, we were talking and she said that she had gone to a movie with her dad and there was an explicit scene in the movie and he just sat there and he watched it. He was probably feeling awkward thinking, why in the world did I bring my daughter to this? But he didn't say anything. And so with her sitting there, that really scarred her and twisted her view of beauty and what's acceptable and what how she should be treated as a young woman. And that always stuck with me. And so we're very careful on anything with sexual content, relationship content. We just would rather delay the entry into that as long as possible. And as they're coming now and asking, as they're getting older into middle school and as we look toward high school, as they ask, hey, can we watch this?
Yeah.
Then we'll, I'll go to Plugged In. I'm going to go to
It's a really good resource.
It's a great
for that.
resource. I'm going to go to whatever source I need to in order to find out what's actually in it. Is this something that we want to explore as a family? And then if there is objectionable content, we tend to keep it fairly very mild, but if there is anything, we're going to watch it as a family and then talk about it together.
Well, I love what you said there because I think what it models are a couple of things that we talk about a lot, and that's just intentionality and engagement.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
I think there was a time when parents thought we can control it all. We lived next door when I was growing up to a family that was like, their media environment was hermetically sealed. Now, the truth is, it wasn't. And there's stuff that got in that they didn't know about.
Yeah.
But it's not true anymore. And so I think the goal here is not perfection, but when we're intentionally engaged as parents and we're really thinking critically about what our kids are watching, I think we're modeling media discernment, we're modeling worldview, and we're helping them to grow in those things.
Yeah.
So I hear you saying, I'm putting words in your mouth.
No, I you did it better than I could say it. That's perfect. That's exactly our goal. We know that there's going to be things that they will be exposed to, and we want to equip them in order to filter through those things and to to be able to sniff a counterfeit and know what the real deal is and to choose real because they know that that's what's going to be life-giving.
Yeah, very good. Well, Jessie, as we sort of begin to land the plane here today, do you have any final words of encouragement for parents who have daughters in this age range?
Absolutely, yeah. This is hard, parents. I know it's hard. I'm right there in it with you. This is I would say it's the most difficult time to be a teenager, which means it's probably the most difficult time to be a parent. We have a lot to discern and look into and try to help our teens and young people work through. But the good news is that God is greater and He's bigger and He's got it all under control, right? And so the same truth applies today as it always has, that with God and with Christ, we can overcome any obstacle, and no matter what evil is out there, good will always outpace evil in God's kingdom. So that's encouraging to me as a parent, and I hope it will be encouraging to you as well.
That is a great word, and I'm going to stick the landing there because I couldn't say it any better myself. As always, we look forward to hearing your comments and thoughts on the conversation that Jessie and I have had today. And we invite you to come back to the Plugged In Vodcast down the road as we keep talking to folks and keep talking about the issues that our families are facing today.